You're listening to the Around the Lens podcast, the home of high-quality, roundtable, visual journalism discussion about the news, topics, and gear related to our career field. Now, here's the host of our show, David J. Murphy.
Hello and welcome to episode 212 of Around the Lens. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me this week are my co-hosts, Evelyn Hochstein and Travis Keys. Hello, co-hosts.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. How are you all doing today?
I would say pretty darn good.
Good.
On this holiday day.
That's right, President's Day, where we take time out to honor both living and past, dead and current presidents indiscriminately for their commitment and their contributions to the country and the world.
You had to throw that current in there. You had to do it. You knew you had to do it. You're just smiling with that big grin. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's here's to the past presidents. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No comment, but it's nice to have a day off. That's for sure.
Well, you know, actually, it's an interesting point because I've never really looked into President's Day as a holiday. Like, if it's designed for past presidents, current presidents, all presidents, you know, it'll be something to look into, you know, and whatnot, or even what we're supposed to do on President's Day. Like, you know, like holidays have like a thing you're supposed to do in response to them. Easter, you have an Easter egg hunt. Christmas, you got Christmas tree. What's the President's Day thing we're supposed to do? Are we supposed to like look at money? I don't even know what we're supposed to do on President's Day besides take time off.
It was to honor the incumbent president and all he had, and all who have served as president, not just George Washington.
Okay.
So that's currently what it's supposedly all about.
Interesting. Cool.
I feel like a roast is fitting. You know, you could.
But you know what? Our current president's already done that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
he's been on Comedy Central on a roast, so.
Right. So, all right.
No surprises there.
We'll have to come up with some new things you do for President's Day.
Actually, roast him.
Not
a pig roast, a president roast.
Well, since we're talking about President's Day, we'll start with you, Evelyn. Anything going on? How you been this past few weeks or whatnot? What have you been up to?
Oh, gosh. I've been up to non-political stuff, so not related to President's Day. We'll be going to South Carolina, but for the debate, not necessarily for the primary. So, yeah, what have I been up to? Some features, technology related to dogs, a big fire here in Alexandria, Virginia. That's just some random freelance assignments.
Cool. And how about you, Travis? What you been up to?
Lots of different work and travel and projects that I can't quite talk about yet, but it's been an exciting time, and I'm booking some travel in the future that's coming up. So a bunch of trips coming up from Sony's Cando to I made a trip, and I'm taking my mom, my mom and my brother to Disney World, and we're going to check out finally the Star Wars and Pandora.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to go check that out. I haven't been to Disney World in, oh my gosh. Well, I haven't been to U.S. Disney World. We did go to Japan Disney World last year, and that was actually pretty neat. They've got this.
I'm a sucker for the Star Wars stuff. I'm a big old kid when it comes to that. I'm going to drop a fortune, make a lightsaber, go check out Chewie, and ride, the Millennium Falcon. I'm going to be a big old kid, damn it.
Cool. And that's in Florida, right? That's the Disney World in Florida that has the
Universal.
Star Wars?
Yeah, Universal. They have the James Cameron. They built the whole Pandora thing, and they also have a huge Star Wars area that looks pretty amazing. How cool is it? Stormtroopers walking around and stuff like that, and people with lightsabers. I'm hooked.
I would love to go see it. Probably will go check it out. Next time we get back to Florida. I said when the kids are at least 5 years old, we'll take them because then they can actually have a recall of it.
Really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I went as like under 5. Do not remember at all.
Exactly.
So my parents didn't take me to Disney World. They say they did.
Mm-hmm.
But.
We only went to
Japan
Disneyland because one, I was curious what Japanese Disneyland looked like, and two, when am I going to be this close to Japan, right? In fact, next year or later this year, we'll be going to Universal Studios in Japan. Do you know why?
Oh, that should be fun.
Super Nintendo Land is going to be opening up.
Is it really?
In Universal Studios in
That's
Japan.
Hysterical.
So you're going to get to see Super Mario and Yoshi and ride the go-karts. It's going to be awesome.
Well, by the time you go to the one in Orlando, they'll probably have built the big Frozen Land they just announced they're building with a big castle and everything. So kids will probably love that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just in time for Frozen 3, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed, indeed. All right, cool. Let's introduce our guest this week, Neha Hirve. Right?
That is correct.
Oh.
Yes.
Neha,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Tell the audience about yourself and your experience.
Well, I'm actually sort of a part-time documentary photographer. I'm not even sure I would classify myself as a photojournalist. I've been working for about 4 years now. I am based in Stockholm, and I got a master's in photojournalism a couple of maybe 3 years ago. But I've actually been working mainly in the film industry.
Oh, okay.
And I've always I've been working a lot with like fiction and documentary with visual effects. So I've always had a string of day jobs or freelance gigs in film. But on the side, I've been focusing a lot on long-term projects, documentary projects. I work a lot with alternative communities. There's a treehouse community in Germany, and we're like a kind of a back to the earth reforestation community in Southeast India, things like that. And I'm a pretty slow worker, so I'd maybe I'd get out one story a year.
Wow.
At this rate. I work right now. I'm working on a project that I shot with storm chasers in the Midwest.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah, and I shoot a lot of film, so I'm pretty much the opposite of what one might imagine a photojournalist to be today.
Well, it doesn't sound like you have the sort of same workflow as a typical photojournalist, so I think shooting on film is probably okay for your world and what you do. But you say that you do sort of that part-time. What do? You said you do the filmmaking full-time? Is that sort of your full-time thing, or is that also a freelance thing?
Sometimes it's full-time, but it's never, I mean, the longest film project I've worked on is 3 years, but it's a gig economy too. It's like photography. It's mostly freelance.
Okay, cool. But you're a full-time freelancer, or do you have like more steady work that you do?
I just made the leap into freelance 6 months ago.
Wow.
It's been hard. I've been making it work. Yeah.
What were you doing before that?
I was working for full-time in film. I was doing visual effects for this feature film.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Like visual effects work. I mean, that's obviously every single movie out there requires, nowadays extensive visual effects, especially the comic book movies and stuff like that. Did you work on anything that we would know about?
I'm probably not. I worked on this film. It won an award at Venice this year, but it's a Swedish director, Roy Andersson. He's very in the artsy stuff. I don't think it's made it to the U.S. yet.
Raj, okay, cool. So,
but maybe this year.
Got it. So no Avengers films.
No.
Oh.
One day.
Okay. Cool. But you say you still have your hooks in the visual effects world while also doing the documentary stuff. So you kind of keep your.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, you said you shoot documentary photography. Are you also shooting documentary film?
Yeah, I do. I worked on a project recently where it's in post-production right now, and I was a cinematographer. It was film we shot in Uzbekistan. It's a short documentary about the rising techno scene.
Yeah.
In Uzbekistan, which is not something I immediately think about when I think of that country, but apparently it's there. It's pretty exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
And now, is that something you're also shooting on actual film, or is that shot in digital?
No, it's just digital. It would be. I would love to shoot that on film, but it's just there's no way we could afford it.
Yeah. What are you shooting with digitally? For the video side.
We actually used A7 II, and we used a bunch of really nice vintage Canon lenses from the 70s. I found it. I thought I was really happy with the camera, but it had this crazy.
I'm sorry. Which camera was that again? You kind of gargled.
The Sony
absolutely
A7.
at the time. Oh, yeah.
Sony A7 II. I was really happy with it, but the major problem was overheating, which is not something you want when you're basically shooting in like 30 degrees in the desert.
Yeah, the newer ones, they solve that.
Okay, that's good to know.
You could also just go with
Especially
Panasonic.
the A7S2 is going to be, you would love it.
Nice.
Yeah, get that great low light performance. Okay, great. And where'd you go to school, by the way? You said you got a master's degree in photojournalism. Where from?
Somewhere in the north of Sweden. But I got a degree in film from NYU.
Oh, okay.
Many years ago. Yeah.
That's where I went. NYU Film School, Tisch School of the Arts.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, great. Small world. Excellent. Well, we've got a lot of great topics to talk about this evening, so let's just get on with the show with our first topic. Basically, a photojournalist was arrested while filming NYPD in Chinatown. Of course, this is nothing new in terms of things that have happened. Obviously, we hope that these type of things don't happen, but they still do. Basically, there was a New York City photojournalist. He was in Chinatown, and he was filming the police who were taking a man into custody. The name of the photojournalist is, I'm going to probably butcher this, Amir Al-Fiqi, or Amir Al-Fiqi. Basically, his work has appeared in New York Times, Reuters, NPR, and is capturing the police doing their job. They said he was interfering or getting in their area, and he says he wasn't, and there's video to back it up. Anyways, I'm not going to go into the who was right, who was wrong, so to speak, on my end. But again, I'll throw it over to you guys, and you talk about what do you think about this. Neha, I know you don't do a lot of photojournalism, whatnot, but have you ever had any sort of, what do you think about this specific story, and have you ever had any issues or potential, altercations with the police or any sort of, law enforcement?
Right. Just looking at this article and the video, this seems like one of those cases that it's pretty obvious that the journalist wasn't obstructing the police and wasn't interfering with their work. So it seems just like, one of the cases of an abuse of power and just the police being bullies, which happens all too frequently, I think, in New York and everywhere. I've photographed. I've been working in Germany. I've had confrontations with the police, but there was a situation where I was covering an occupation in a forest, and they were getting evicted. I think it was 2018, and it was just like it turned into this huge media thing. At the time, there were about 50 to 100 people living in this forest that was supposed to be cut down by a power company, and the police ended up evicting them, and it was just a crazy over response. They sent in over, I think, almost 1,000 riot cops to sort of perform the evacuation, and there were a ton of journalists there, and the police were just giving everyone a hard time, but within limits. They wouldn't. I don't think you would see this kind of situation happening there. For me, what kind of I sort of just had to make sure I stood my ground and kept repeating my rights to them, and sort of just made sure I had ID. And they made things harder, but they didn't obstruct me from doing my work, which not everyone is so lucky.
Yeah, no, I know if Zach was here, he'd talk about the time when he was arrested during the Occupy Wall Street protests, and he was filming over there. And he would also decry the fact that in New York City, the police issue the press passes or press badges so you can actually do press work in the city. So an interesting sort of, I guess, conflict of interests in his opinion. Evelyn, have you dealt with any D.C. Police officers or any sort of altercations? And what are your thoughts on this story specifically?
Oh, yeah. I think this is a sort of a classic abuse of power, but what I found really frustrating is why there continues to be this sort of lack of training, I think, for police people on like what other people's rights are or what their limits are. And I feel especially, it doesn't even have to do with journalists, but all of the sort of police brutality issues that we're seeing, I feel like there are constantly people in power that abuse this authority or bullies, as Neha said, and keeps sort of slipping through the cracks. I mean, I feel like people should be overly sensitive in this day and age and overly trained. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't know why these things continue. I mean, I understand that cops, I mean, in DC, I haven't been arrested. I've certainly had many confrontations with bullying police officers, and it could be anywhere from, just you can't walk on that side of the street because it just seems completely arbitrary and they just want to be bullies, to really good experiences. And I will say this year, I feel like I've had some very positive experiences with the police, and I'm wondering if they've had extra sensitivity training on how to deal with journalists or what to do in sort of crowd or riot situations. I think my experience has been good so far. Other people may disagree with me, so I wouldn't want to speak for everyone on in those terms. But I just find it really frustrating that the bullying continues, and there are people that are still in these positions that have the chance to assert themselves in ways that are completely inappropriate and a waste of time. Like that photographer. I mean, what was the point? Like, it just seems like a colossal. I don't know. It just seems useless, basically. And he got off, and frustrating for the media and for him and his time. And yeah.
It's interesting. You mentioned training, right? And I do know that, again, I can't speak to the frequency or how often or the quality of the training, but I do know that, some organizations like the MPPA and others have actually done training with police officers to try to give them hey, here's how to react to a photojournalist, videographers, media, journalists who are in your general area, and how to react and whatnot. I can't say it's any good or it's obviously making a difference in this case. Obviously, from what we can see, it doesn't seem like it has. But I wonder, is there anything like that you or any photojournalist, have you ever gotten training on how to approach police officers in working and sort of crime scenes and stuff like that? Can you recall anything you've ever been trained on or been talked about or know about or whatnot? Or how would you know?
You're breaking up a little.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Basically, how would you know to approach a crime scene situation where police are working? Is there something you've ever been taught that you can remember, whether it be in college or on the streets or something, or is it just you learned while doing?
I haven't. I think I use just common sense,
Mm-hmm.
be polite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Try to engage. Especially yeah.
Don't
Go ahead.
be hostile. Just don't.
No, I mean,
don't
there's so many
aggravate the
different.
situation. Just
Yeah, there's so many different layers to this. And first of all, with this situation, you kind of wonder, if it, here's an Egyptian, photojournalist that's based in New York City, and you hope that it's not race related, but it very well, the reaction to him very well that might have played into it. And a lot of times when you hear, about these type of things, you have to quickly not judge the situation, because there are a lot of photojournalists that escalate situations, that say, hey, and push back, and it's that classic. When the bouncer won't let you in a nightclub, you call him an a-hole, and that's not going to de-escalate the situation. It's not going to get you anywhere. So but this one, there is video, and you see that he didn't escalate the situation, and certainly, I think that it plays. But there's just a very common sense thing. If I've only been in a couple of situations with police and shooting and stuff like that, and I think if you kind of guide the situation of not being a threat and saying, hey, I'm this person, and kind of put your hands, and they can kind of read off the way you are. So if you're escalating the situation, will escalate the situation.
Right. Yeah, the way I approach police is I come to them, I get down on the floor, I put my hands above my head, and then I have a conversation. No, I'm kidding. My interactions when I was working in NYC as a freelancer with police were, for the most part, good. They were all, pretty engaging folks. They wanted, they're trying to work with you. They know what you're trying to do. They're trying to, make sure that they can work alongside you and that they're not going to be out in altercations. There was one instance where I was trying to film a movie set, right? They were filming Sex and the City, the movie, and I was trying to get some shots, and the police guy was, threatening to take away my press badge because I was keep on trying to shoot something, film something, and whatnot. But beyond that, though, never had any issues myself. Yeah, like Evelyn said, you take common sense precautions. You're not getting right up in their faces with a wide angle lens. you're not crossing the police line and whatnot without permission anyways. And,
if you want to get in their face with a wide angle lens, I think that's your right. And unfortunately, they should be able to deal with that, right? I mean, I wouldn't not do that. Like if I'm shooting, if they're going after somebody with a baton, which I photographed this year, some Antifa, you're with a wide angle lens. I almost got run over by a bike. And the police in that kind of situation, they sort of know that you're media, but when they're clearing the street and they're going to get everybody onto the sidewalks, you can push it, but eventually you're going on the sidewalk too, so if you're disobeying a direct order. So you can maybe be the last one to get on the sidewalk, but know that eventually you're also sidewalk if you're in the middle of the road. So, but I wouldn't, to your point, yes, common sense, but if you want to, if they're out there and you want to shoot them however you want to shoot, it may piss them off. So decide, how you want to approach that situation. But they're pretty good in I don't know. I have had altercations. I think Travis made a good point too. Like, just kind of, there's nothing that gets my blood going when somebody tells me I can't do something and it seems arbitrary to me. And when I want to push back, but you sort of have to decide how you want to play it. And I think it's good to sort of de-escalate.
Even when you're in the right, you have to de-escalate it yourself and know and play it and play the game.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if it's true or not, but my sense in the last year with DC is maybe there's been some training. I'd love to find out about it because I have actually noticed a marked difference. And it's literally where I've been with my colleagues and said, hey, the police were amazing, or they gave us great access during that protest, or there were no hassles or no conflicts. It's been noticeable. So
I would hope if there's training being done anywhere, it's being done in DC. I would hope. Of all
exactly, since you're now the enemy of the people.
Right. So maybe it's our mayor. Who knows? I don't know, but anyway, good practice in DC if you want to learn how to work with police. A lot of protests. So
Neha, you were about to say something?
It just reminded me of something funny when I was covering this occupation in Germany. We were photographing at night. I think I was with another photojournalist, and we were walking around the perimeter, and they had a bunch of police at regular intervals to guard the place. And there's no light or anything; we could barely see. And I was taking photographs, and I didn't realize that the flash of my camera was on, and I was maybe 5 feet away from this bunch of riot cops, and this huge blinding flash goes off, and I freaked out. I thought they were just gonna get aggressive with me, but good for them. Props to them. They turned their the spotlight on me and just completely silently, just completely blinded me for about maybe 30 seconds, and then just turned it off again. Just let me go. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. To your point, Evelyn, with regard to wide angle or whatever. Yeah. Shoot however you're going to shoot. I'm not saying to not use any specific lens or camera type or style, but obviously taking into account the fact that, if you're a working freelancer or working staffer, you're working in that beat, you're working in that city. These are people you may see over and over again. You want to have a good working relationship with these folks. They're just trying to do their job. You're just trying to do your job, whatnot. Is antagonizing these folks, or, again, like you said, it may be a heated situation. There may be a lot going on. You may get confused. They may get confused with you, who you are, what you're doing, not see your press badge. There's a million things that can go on. And again, the situation will dictate whatever you're going to do. You may just be in a situation where you're shooting wide and close, and that's just how it is, and that's, we've seen some, beautiful imagery that way. But, again, every photojournalist is going to have to take it, or visual journalist is going to have to take it and adjust the situation on their own and whatnot. But I was going to say, Travis, you haven't had too many altercations with the police doing portrait work?
I've had, you laugh, but I've shot portraits on the streets of, Camden, New Jersey, where I was shooting portraits for the Philadelphia 76ers for a project they were doing. And, I was shooting, from gang people to drug people. And I had plenty of police officers pull up on me, like, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And then stuff like that. And I've shot in, some Antifa stuff I've shot. And so I've had my share of, dealing with police. And I also worked, in film and TV. So I know those SOD police that swooped you away when you were trying to shoot film sets and stuff like that. So I've had plenty of run-ins and experience with them.
You have an interesting case because you obviously do your portrait work. You do it in big cities. I'm sure you've done it in New York City. Obviously there's the film and television office or whatnot in New York City that offers permits. Have you ever had to get like a permit to do any of your portrait shoots or any of your commercial shoots?
If you're going to do anything with stands and lights and section off streets and stuff like that, you have to go through the governor's office or mayor's office for film in New York, and it's not cheap. So I tend to try and run and gun. So I'll have a lighting person with a light on a boom or stuff like that. I don't put my camera on a tripod and try and flag off stuff that way. But if it's a bigger client and they want to pay that, then they're welcome to. But me personally, I tend to go the cheaper route and not pay thousands of dollars to shoot on the streets.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I've mentioned it in the past, but I was shooting a short film in New York City, and we decided to do a shot by the famous, what is it, mental hospital down there. I can't remember the name, Bellevue. And we had like a full production, like me, a couple other guys, and I was the camera guy. We had actors, we had mic guy, everything. And I think some cops or some folks came up to us and asked us, hey, we have a permit to do this. What are we doing here? And we said we were students doing a film project. And they were like, whatever. Yeah, okay, get out of here. Get out of here. We'd gotten our shots by then, so it wasn't a big deal. But it was, they're very adamant about that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, if there's no more comments on this topic, we'll move on to our next topic. The Nikon D6 was fully announced and released for pre-orders, and it is now something you can buy. It's a pretty powerful camera, if that's the kind of camera you're looking for. It's, let's see here, 20...
Is that what you think, Dave? Is that really what you think?
I'm just reading what the story
says. I'd like
says.
To say otherwise. I'd like to say otherwise.
I want you to say otherwise. I'll just give the folks who are listening a general idea of what this camera can do. 20.8 megapixel, 4K 30p, 105 point all cross type autofocus. Nikon says it's the most powerful autofocus system in their history. Let's see here. Full HD. Woohoo. Let's see, 12 to 14 frames per second, 10.5 frames per second, silent mode. It's the same body type as the previous D5, that tank style. Obviously, it's a mirrored camera, not a mirrorless. And if you're looking, again, all the marketing material associated with this is like saying this is the photographer, this is a camera for sports photographers and whatnot. But again, I'm thinking like I use the D4S I've used all the D series cameras, and again, wonderful cameras for photography and photojournalism. If you're looking for reliability and whatnot, like extremely reliable systems from my perspective. But let's start over you, Travis. You have some thoughts on this camera and its capabilities.
Well, Nikon is playing this game of trying to release a flagship camera, and when you look at the a 20.8 and shooting 4K at 30p, if you're releasing a camera nowadays and it's just 4K 30p and you're going to be a flagship, every other camera is going to 60 or 120 or it's just it's not a spec to really kind of say, hey, this is you need to spend a lot more money on this camera, and if it wants to be a sports camera, the A9 and shoots 20 frames a second, it's not even stacking up against those
without
cameras.
Blackout.
Without blackout, exactly. So I don't know what they're touting here, and the focus system they're saying 108, 105 cross type AF. I think just the A7R 4, which is not even the A9, has over almost 400 points of So when you're talking about focus systems and stuff like that, granted they do have good focusing, but it's not nearly covering what the Sony does. So if this is what they're releasing as a new great, it's kind of lackluster.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm not really too sold on any of these specs. I think people are going to buy this camera. They're going to buy it because they've used this type of camera in the past. It's worked for them, and they are going to get, it's like people who buy Apple computers. They're going to keep on with Apple. They're not going to be looking outside the Apple ecosystem. It's the same thing. It's going to be people within the Nikon ecosystem that want to use the Nikon lens structure and family. What about you, Evelyn? Is this camera do anything for you? I know you're a Canon shooter primarily. So so,
I am.
But in terms of, with Canon, of course they have their equivalent, which is, what is it, the 1DX, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be their equivalent.
I mean, I'm on my 5D Mark IV, so that's about all I know. I never, for me, that the price jump to that Canon camera was always just so expensive, and I liked the smaller, 5Ds, and it did everything that I needed. I mean, sometimes I'm a little jealous of the, frame rate that you can get from some of my, big colleagues, wire colleagues. But yeah, so I'm not the person to ask on this panel about the tech stuff.
Well, Evelyn, if money weren't an issue, would you upgrade to the larger, size Canon, the 1DX?
No, she would get the Sony.
Yeah, for those really hard news events, definitely.
No, you would get the Sony.
Or maybe, yeah, I'm thinking about, as we've mentioned, Travis.
Well, I'm meeting with Sony this week, so I'll bring you up.
So, yeah, I want to check out Sony for sure. Or mirrorless. I mean, I want to try, I've tried Canon mirrorless, and I'm undecided.
They have specs on a camera that's coming up, the EOS R5, which are, if are true, are very impressive.
Yeah, that's an exciting camera, and when it comes out, who knows? But it has, the fact that they're thinking about that, and they're thinking about putting those kind of specs.
Yeah, that's pushing. You're talking 8K if the rumors are right. That bin down. That's 2 card slots. You're talking about a full swivel touchscreen. You're talking. I mean, they're doing stuff with that camera that's actually kind of really impressive. So if the rumors are true on what they're saying, it's going to have. It's a player.
Yeah. The player's going to play, but. You mentioned 8K, right? And of course, the new Samsung phones were announced this past week. The S20 and S20 Plus and S20 Ultra, and they all shoot 8K. So we now have a cell phone that can shoot 8K video at 24 frames per second. What do y'all think about that? What do you think about that, Travis?
What is impressive about that camera at 8K is not only is it shooting at 8K, but you can pull 33 megapixel stills from that video.
That's amazing.
So that's pretty crazy.
As a filmmaker, Neha, you're actually.
I think that's pretty impressive, but for me, it's not just the resolution. I mean, the 8K is fine, but for me, it's also about the color depth and the dynamic range. And I think that, as a viewer, I think those kind of things make a bigger, sort of perceptible difference in quality than just having 8K video.
Yeah.
And to the Nikon D6, it would definitely be overkill for anything that I would do. So I'm not maybe the person to talk about that camera. I just think that way too many people have cameras where they're just using like a fraction of the functionality that they paid for. Yeah,
no, that's true of most cameras, and it's funny that obviously video recording has been in cameras and SLRs and DSLRs for like the past 5 to 10 years or so, and I'm sure there are many people who barely touch the video function on their cameras, even though it has that capability. Evelyn,
I did actually use my cameras to try to work on a documentary project. So and I went to NPPA multimedia immersion, and I used my my DSLRs. In fact, I went to Malawi and I started working on a film project, and I didn't take a single still frame. I forced myself to only. I thought it would be too hard to do both. I sort of regret that a little bit, that I don't have any stills. But I only used video. So I did, but it was the first time. I mean, I've had those cameras, forever. That was the first time I'd ever done video, ever.
I think it is hard to go back and forth from video to stills and have that mindset. But if you take the time to like make the custom settings, M1, 2, 3 custom settings or whatever like that, you can actually kind of switch back a lot easier and not lose that step.
I think because I was new in filmmaking, and I was still very uncomfortable in the medium, that the advice I was given was just spend your time. You only have these 3 weeks. Like focus on that, and don't like default back to your
Which is
still.
pretty sound advice.
Indeed.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. But yeah, that's a tough transition in general to do, I think.
Yeah, because at some point you will miss something. Either you're shooting video or you're shooting stills. They don't both go together, except now on this Samsung where you can shoot 8K and pull 33 megapixel stills from it. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, Travis, have you pre-ordered your Samsung S20 Ultra yet?
I have seriously thought about it. I still have my S10, like 1 terabyte, phone, and also an iPhone 11 Pro. So I'm like, I don't know. I really want to play with that. It's a 108 megapixel camera on that thing.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And with a zoom, like I think a 10-time optical and a 100-time digital or something. I mean, it's doing things now that are just insane. I mean, it really is that. Sort of, they say game changing. I hate to use that term, but there's a lot of stuff that's coming along in the pipeline on these things. And I've seen some amazing directors. I think it was the John Wick director. He did a video on an iPhone shooting a whole snowball fight, and it's incredible. And there's the behind the scenes footage of it. It looks fantastic. And literally, I'm like, oh, he's got to have it in a rig with different lenses, and he doesn't. He has like a little cage so they can do kind of cool shots and attaches stuff. I'm like, whoa, it's a great looking video. He's done amazing stuff with it, and it was shot on an iPhone.
It's amazing what you can do with a crew, and also some time editing, indeed, like that. But I mean, the phones are immediately impressive, and you need to ditch that old, antiquated, outdated gear and get yourself the S20 Ultra, obviously. Yeah, no, that 100 times zoom is pretty.
I may impressive. wait for the Note version of it, though.
I'm in the same boat. I'm probably going to upgrade to the Note 20 Ultra or whatever they end up calling it.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Yeah, the telescopic lens and the 8K video recording are the two biggest selling points for me personally. 8K is the way to go. It's the way of the future. You know what?
I think I'm gonna have to get my iPhone 6 the way you guys are talking.
Yeah, that's sweet 1080p footage.
Right. I know, right?
But
I got to tell you, just that having that, having the iPhone 11 Pro in my pocket for stills and video, because it shoots literally the best video of the phones. I don't really use it as phone. I use it as secondary in my social media output. I use it for video and BTS and stuff like that. And it is an incredibly powerful tool just to have in your pocket at all times to do that kind of stuff, and usable on the stills and the video. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, indeed. It's even higher resolution than 8K film, which is something Neha shoots. Neha, you shoot film,
which is why I shoot medium format.
That's right, medium format film. That's like 64K or something crazy. I think.
I don't know the exact. I don't. I looked it up once, but it was pretty impressive.
Now, obviously,
probably.
You shoot exclusively film. But have you ever thought digital, and why have you kept with film?
Well, I don't shoot exclusively film. If I get an assignment, occasionally I will shoot. Occasionally, if I'm really at a, it's just stressed for time or something. And I have the same. I have a Canon 5D Mark IV, I think, and that is perfectly adequate for anything I've ever wanted to do. But I think it's partly the medium format, the resolution, the dynamic range, the shadows and the highlights, and the amount of detail that I get from film that I love. It's partly psychological, of course. Just the process of film changes you, especially for portraiture. I find it way nicer to shoot on film a lot because the people who are being photographed approach it in a different way, and they see it differently. They take you a little bit more seriously sometimes, I find.
I think it allows you also to slow down a bit. They understand that it's not digital. They allow you're not going to be firing off tons and tons of frames, so it allows you to take the time to build that rapport and really kind of do things in a way that they automatically accept, which that in itself don't feel hurried. And I think that changes the whole portrait dynamic right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. It becomes much more collaborative, I feel like, with film.
That's why I put my digital cameras in a fake film case. No.
I have a little lever on my camera that I have to turn every time I want to take another picture. Even though there's no film in there, I'll just...
Yeah.
So you choose like certain subjects. You're going to be like, okay, I'm going to bring out the film camera for that. And then, you have the digital camera there as well, shooting the subjects as well. Or
I used to. I think for this for my thesis project, I wanted, that was the first time I think I seriously started shooting film, medium format, and I took my Mamiya 7 with me, and I was going to this community, and I was going to be living there for 2 months, and I didn't have anywhere to develop the film or process it or anything. And so I took a digital camera with me as backup. It's like, okay, I'm going to take the same photo like 2 times each time, just in case, but I'm only going to use the film once. And then on the second week there, I climbed a watchtower to get an overhead shot. And there was this guy who was with me, and on the way down, I gave him my camera bag to take and put on the ground, and he dropped it. And it was like 6 meters off the ground. Oh. And just, that was like the singular worst moment of my life. And the Nikon, I think it was a Nikon I had, and it was completely snapped into. The lens had just like broken off the body, and it was just a mess. But the film camera was fine. And so for the rest of the 2 months, I was forced to sort of trust the process and just be like, I don't have another option. I mean, I was like 3 hours away from any kind of civilization. It was just, it was scary. But that project turned out to be really, really good, and I'm super, super glad that I shot it on film, and that kind of kick-started the rest of my career, to be honest. So it's kind of a spiritual thing for me too now. Trust the process. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to move on to our last topic this evening. We're talking about outerwear, jackets specifically, hot topic. So this kind of piqued my interest, and I thought would be a nice little jumping off point to just what we wear when we do our jobs.
We never talk fashion here.
Not nearly enough. Yeah. Not nearly enough.
Yeah.
But anyways, this company, Canada Goose, have released an $850 photojournalist jacket. And, of course, it's been ridiculed all over the internet, and especially on the Petapixel website, because, of course, who among us, at least as photojournalists, have $850 lying around that we can just throw at a jacket? But, I got to thinking about this, and I'll let y'all chime in on your thoughts on it. But it's like, on the one hand, yeah, that's ridiculous, right? But on the other hand, we spend thousands of dollars on a lens or a camera body or a flash or all this stuff. So it's like, clothing. Maybe there's a market for that. Maybe there's some just really well-off, successful freelancers who are looking at this and be like, oh yeah, let me throw some money at that. Right, Evelyn? You're a well-off success. You would buy multiple. You're buying these for the whole team, right? No.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I didn't like the jacket. Looked like you were going to rescue. I mean, it looked like ski patrol or something, or a fire bin or whatever, emergency EMT jacket. Second of all, I thought the price point was ridiculous. And I think as a working photojournalist, we all sort of figure out what works for us. Now, I will say that I think people pretend like they don't care about fashion, and they do, because there's a real uniform that I notice amongst photojournalists. Like when I was an international, war type correspondent living abroad, it was the Blundstone boots and the scarf of whatever, and the pouches, and maybe they were Domke at the time, and now they're Think Tank or whatever. So people have their own sort of look or uniforms. Nobody. This jacket made me think of like a photography vest, right? Like who wears a photography vest except perhaps a hobbyist?
Wait, you don't?
Maybe I've got I should be wearing. But it's like occasionally you'll be on assignment, you'll see some guy in like a tan photography vest, and you're like, okay, who are they? Like, what are they do? They seem out of place. And that was my take on the jacket. And the price point seemed crazy. The utility of it, the reflective details. I don't know. You guys can weigh in, but I think I like the pockets. I like the zip. I wear jackets that have like pit zips. You get hot, you get cold. Like a sporty, like an outdoor jacket. So
unfortunately, I don't think it's the price that's the issue with this jacket. I think you're absolutely right. It's hideously ugly, and it screams, "Hey, look at me!" Not the way you want to be looked at as a photojournalist. It's like it's like, who's that guy? It'll draw an instant attention to you. It's like wearing those little if you were out in the runway guiding airplanes, that kind of vest. It just looks terrible. I think there's a lot of people that may want to use something that was very functional. Like I think there's a brand called Scotty Vest that actually makes some really cool stuff, and they're very nondescript. They're black, and they have pockets all over the place for batteries and lenses and computers and phones and stuff like that. And it's so much cheaper, and just you can get in just a solid color and just more functional. This is just kind of hideous. So you kind of think it's the person that wants to play dress up, or something like the dentist that goes out and buys a Leica, and he's like, he wants to I have the most expensive Canadian Goose thing. It's just everything that a photojournalist wouldn't wear.
Totally. I think too, we do stand out. I read some comments on Twitter that's like, well, who thinks we don't stand out, or you're trying to be, but maybe we do. If I've got all my gear on and I'm carrying 2 cameras, and I sometimes I just have one and I'm trying to be subtle, but other times I've got both bodies and 2 pouches. Of course I stand out.
It's usually not the jacket that's making you stand out, though. It's that amount of gear hanging off of you.
Jacket, exactly. I'm going to be wearing probably tan or black or whatever, just something worky and functional. So, but yeah, what do you guys? I
like to shoot in a nice smoking jacket, or a robe
with a pipe.
As long as it's
yes, yeah. exactly.
It's really, I mean, apart from the fact that it's really ugly, I kind of wonder if we're missing the point a little, because I feel like they're not, I mean, photojournalists aren't their market here. I mean, Canada Goose, they know their market. They're trying to make photojournalism fashionable. They're selling the image of a photojournalist to people who can actually afford to pay that much money for a jacket. I don't think it was ever.
That's my dentist with a Leica.
Yeah, and it's just like the guy with the vest. That's who's going to show up in this, I suppose.
No, I agree. People are buying into the romantic ideal of a photojournalist and kind of what that used to be and used to represent in times when it was more feasible to make a living doing it. And although, again, even if you're a photojournalist, you're not buying. I don't know, who would think this would relate to that, because I mean, I remember some of the outerwear that I've seen working professionals use is kind of almost that fisherman style jacket with all the pockets on it. That's what a working photojournalist would wear, because they need pockets for their notes and their notebook and maybe a lens or 2 or something like that or whatever, and their accessories. And this accomplishes the same general idea, but again, I don't know, these colors, that design, even if this thing were $50, I don't know if I would see anyone wearing this in the professional photojournalism world. So
it's
but you can get different colors, though. There's black and navy blue and red. It's just red is the one that's featured here.
There you go.
On this story. I didn't see that. I'm gonna order one.
Do a full review for us. Let us know how it helps you with your photojournalism.
Little fashion shoot with it. I can do a full fashion shoot with it.
But Neha, do you wear anything specific, any sort of specific gear or again, clothing that helps you do your job, or are you just wearing something appropriate for the temperature in the area?
I think something appropriate for the area. I work a lot outdoors, and pockets are good. Pockets are useful. Yeah, I have a pair of pants with a lot of pockets. Good.
Yeah, I'm usually sporting some cargo pockets on my shorts.
Yeah.
Or my long pants.
I can see that. You have the zip away ones where you could go from pant to short, in a heartbeat.
Absolutely, you need those. You might get hot. You want to zip off, take it off. I need the jacket that does that as well. The shirts and the pants.
Converts to a vest. Yeah.
When I flew.
Unfortunately, you got the one that unzips at the mid chest, and that's kind of weird.
Sometimes you want to show off your belly. And then I have the tri-zip pants, the shorts, and then the short shorts, because sometimes you want to be free.
You want to have an evening out.
Yeah. Formal wear, right? I remember when I traveled to California one time, and I was flying via Spirit Air. And if anybody has flown Spirit, if you don't want to pay their exorbitant carry-on baggage fees, because they make you pay for everything, they'll allow one small bag you can carry on with you that's 10 inches by 10 inches by 14 inches, or whatever their dimensions are. So I had to pack for a week with just that amount of space. And so one of the ways I sort of hacked the system was, again, I wore the pants that can convert, and those were my pants for the week. And then, I think I had a few shirts and various other things that, of course, I would change on a daily basis. But, typically when I'm shooting, I just want to wear something comfortable. I would say go with a non-collared shirt if you're a guy, just because every time I'm going out there, I'm shooting and I'm taking my camera strap off and on, I'm always popping my collar inadvertently, and it makes me look like a doofus. And I don't want to look like a doofus.
You get the collars with little buttons.
Yeah. Well, if you want to look professional, but I would just wear a regular T-shirt. No one cares what you look like. I've seen some very shaggy and shabby looking photojournalists, and then on the counter side of that, you see very well done and well dressed up people, practically in business suits doing their job, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. You can't be comfortable, but you look good.
I don't think everyone can get away with T-shirts at a lot of her shoots. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the guys on the Hill in the White House, they wear ties. I mean, they look. They're certainly rules. I think they are dressed sharper than, because I don't go that often to the White House, so I'm like, oh gosh, find a blazer, and does the black jeans work? Are they like pants if they're black? It's always a thing. But you do have to dress a certain way when you're covering those events. So
exactly, I find the black shorts, the black sandals, and the black cut off tee, and I'm good.
Yeah,
formal wear.
What's wrong with black?
No, absolutely. Maybe throw a tie on there. Tie with the short sleeve shirt. Yeah, I wish
or
we
a
could
T-shirt with a tie.
Ooh.
Yeah,
or have it printed on the shirt.
Yeah,
the tuck
exactly.
shirt. Yeah, exactly.
I'll know those.
Indeed. Yeah, I have shot. Being in the military, I've shot some events where I had to wear my formal attire because that was the uniform for the event. So we as the military member, doesn't matter. If we're participating or not, we're looking like everybody else is. So you kind of put the camera on, and that limits your mobility, limits your ability to do certain shoots and get down and get certain shots. But you have to make some certain sacrifices in terms of what the decorum and what the protocol requires. For you, Travis, do you dress specifically? Because obviously you're representing professional clients, corporate clients. Are you dressing up more so because of that, or do you wear what you want to wear to be comfortable?
For the most part, at this stage, people hire me, and I can kind of show up whatever I want to wear. If I'm going into a corporate thing or a big event or something like that, I'll dress accordingly. But I know a lot of I only shoot 4 or 5 weddings a year, but I used to put on the jacket and all that kind of stuff, and I found I was miserable. So now I'll wear black slacks and a black T-shirt and stuff like that, and be comfortable. And that's what I'm going to wear. If you want me dressing up, I'm not your photographer. But there are times if I walk into a certain place, I'll wear a jacket or something like that. And dress accordingly, but for the most part, I live in my jeans and a button down or a T-shirt or something like that.
Cool. All right, well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this week's show. Neha, thank you so much for being a guest. Truly appreciate it. Where can people find more about you and your work?
Instagram is probably the best way right now. It's just @Neha Hirve.
And is that where you can find some of your documentary work as well?
Yeah.
We see some of that. Oh, good.
I have a website, but it's not running right now because I took it down. I'm recoding it. So.
Okay.
Instagram.
Yeah, I was trying to find out your website. I went to search for it and stuff, and it came up as an error. And so you're redoing it completely?
Yeah, I decided to learn how to code, so I'm doing that.
Oh, wow.
But because I don't want to spend money on a host anymore.
Okay.
But it's taking a little longer than expected.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to spend money on Squarespace anymore because you're always going to need a host. That's unfortunate. You can't get away from that.
No, but actually, no, not necessarily because I'm coding the whole thing. I'm doing a static site, and I'm coding the whole thing in front end, and I'm just going to host it on GitHub for free.
Okay.
So I'm not going to spend any money on it. I need to pay for the domain name, but that's not much.
Yeah. Huh. Well.
Interesting. That is something I did not realize. I know we have one other guest on who does host their website on GitHub, but I've never thought of it as a hosting platform, but that's pretty neat. Yeah, you'll have to let us know how that went, and definitely when your website does come back up, for sure, let us know. I'll make sure to let the audience know, let the people know where they can find out more about you and your work and whatnot. Besides, obviously, the Instagram page, which in reality, what's more important than the Instagram page and the social media page? That's where people are going anyways, and they want to be able to interact with your work. I've got the website up, but I barely have time to mess with it, and nobody goes to my website. So. All right, cool. Anything else you want to plug or throw out there before we sign off, Neha?
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming.
Glad to have you here. You're always welcome back. Travis, Evelyn, anything you all want to throw out there before we sign off tonight?
I hope you guys are all enjoying your President's Day, and if you want to follow up anything we've discussed or have any good topics or guests or subjects we should cover, please let us know. We always love hearing from you guys.
Yeah. Head on over to aroundthelens.com. You'll find all our links to our social media, as well as, most importantly, our Patreon, where you can submit for $1 a month and get everything we do a week ahead of time, or give us more money and get other perks and help support what we're doing here in terms of highlighting and promoting visual journalism discussion. All right, great. Evelyn, anything new from WPOW?
Oh my gosh, we had our big event. I've been less involved. Like 2 weeks ago, we had our portfolio. But
How'd
it was
that go?
bigger than it was great. A huge success. I actually missed most of it. I wasn't running it this year, but I was covering this big fire in Virginia. But I got there for the happy hour, which is the most important part. But really, kudos to them. And for anybody who wants to come to a portfolio review or network, or in the DC area or in DC, just visiting, check out WPOW, Women Photojournalists of Washington.org.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Neha, thank you so much for taking time out to be a guest. I truly appreciate it. And for Evelyn Hochstein and Travis Keys, I am David J. Murphy. This has been episode 212 of Around the Lens, and we are out of here.
Thanks for listening to Around the Lens. We hope you enjoyed the show. To continue the conversation, head on over to one of our social media outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter. To support the show financially, consider donating to us via Patreon. For show notes from this week's episode and links to everything else we talked about, just go to our website, aroundthelens.com. Finally, if you or someone you know might be a good guest for the show, get in touch with us via email at info@aroundthelens.com.